Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters across the continent and the diaspora today, we gather not just to listen, but to awaken. In a time when silence has become survival and excuses have become currency, we need voices that do not tremble in the face of truth. Our speaker today is not a stranger to truth. He is a voice for Africa's conscience. A fearless warrior in the courtroom and on the stage of ideas, a professor of law, a Pan-Africanist, and a man whose words strike like thunder but heal like rain. He has challenged the corrupt, inspired the youth, and reminded a sleeping continent of its potential. He does not speak to please, he speaks to provoke thought, to ignite action, and to awaken a generation. Please rise if you're able, and give your full attention and respect to one of Africa's greatest minds and fiercest patriots, Professor Patrick Motivational Lumumba. In every corner of this continent we hear voices of discontent, voices of disappointment, voices that echo the same chorus. The system has failed us, the leaders have betrayed us, the future is bleak. And while these voices speak some truth, the problem is not the noise, the problem is what follows that noise. Nothing. We speak, we groan, we post, we protest, but then we sit. We go back to our corners, back to our routines, back to our hopelessness. Complaining has become our national anthem, but action is nowhere to be found. We have normalized complaining as if it is a form of contribution. But I submit to you today, complaining is not a strategy. It does not move us forward, it does not build bridges, it does not invent solutions. Complaining is a symptom of inactivity. It is what we do when we no longer believe in our own power. We point fingers because it's easier than lifting a hand. We blame the past because we fear the responsibility of the present, and so we sit angry but passive, aware but paralyzed. You see, every time we complain, we surrender power. We give our agency to others. The government should do this. The leaders must fix that. The West is the reason for our suffering. My brothers and sisters, how long will we keep outsourcing our future to people who have no interest in building it for us? How long will we stay in this prison of victimhood? Yes, colonialism robbed us. Yes, corruption plagues us. Yes, leadership has failed us time and time again. But what will our generation be remembered for? Will we be remembered as the ones who inherited pain and passed it on, or the ones who broke the cycle? Let me tell you something that is uncomfortable but necessary. Pain is not an excuse for passivity. Every generation has had its struggle. Every people have known suffering, but history does not remember those who suffered in silence. History remembers those who turned suffering into strength, those who turned obstacles into opportunity. So ask yourself today, when was the last time your complaint led to change? When was the last time sitting with your anger produced a solution? The truth is, it never does, because change does not come from emotion alone. It comes from motion, from movement, from making a decision that I will no longer just speak, I will act. Our greatest challenge is not just bad leadership, it is citizen passivity. We wait for saviors instead of becoming them. We glorify struggle but fear sacrifice. We demand justice but avoid responsibility. And so we remain stagnant, full of ideas but empty of action. Look around you, look at your community, look at your home. Look at your business, your school, your street. What are you waiting for? A miracle, a policy, a leader who may never come. The change we cry for is not locked in a foreign bank account. It is not sitting in Parliament. It is not waiting at the border. The change is in your hands. It is in your mind. It is in your will to rise even when everything tells you to stay down. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. The African child who waits for perfection will die in delay. Action breeds progress. One step leads to another. One voice inspires another. One act of courage multiplies. That is how nations are built, not in grand speeches, but in small, consistent actions. Every great movement in history began with someone who refused to stay quiet, but also refused to only speak. Someone who decided that complaining was not enough, that it would never be enough. So I say to you today, stop complaining. Stop repeating the problems as if repetition is power. We already know the problems. What we need are builders, creators, movers, thinkers, doers. We need people who will trade excuses for execution. We need people who are not waiting to be pushed, but are ready to push themselves. Do not let your mouth be louder than your hands. Speak less, build more. Dream big, but act bigger. Let your legacy be built on what you did, not what you wished. The future belongs to those who show up, not those who show off. We speak often of history, we quote it, we debate it, we use it to justify our fears and failures. But the truth is, history has already taught us everything we need to know. The question is not whether we know what happened, the question is whether we are prepared to respond to it with action. Knowing the past is not enough if it does not lead to transformation. It is not enough to memorize the names of heroes, dates of independence, or the crimes of colonizers. We must ask ourselves, what are we doing with that knowledge? Across Africa, we are surrounded by reminders of a painful past. Colonial buildings still stand. Old flags lie folded in museums. Statues have fallen, but their shadows remain. We inherit stories of struggle and survival. We sing songs of resistance. We call ourselves the children of revolutionaries. But we forget that to carry the legacy of those who fought, we must also carry their courage. To truly honor history, we must act where they left off. We have blamed colonialism for many of our problems, and rightly so. It dismantled our systems, destroyed our economies, divided our people. But colonialism ended decades ago. The chains were removed, yet we still live with a slave mentality waiting to be led, afraid to rebel against failure, paralyzed by permission. What excuse do we have now? Independence was not a finish line. It was a beginning, and what have we done since? Some will say our leaders are corrupt, our systems are broken. Yes, that may be true, but what are we doing about it? We know that power concedes nothing without demand. We know that history repeats itself when its lessons are ignored, and yet we keep walking in circles, complaining about the same problems with no intention to change them. The truth is this: we have misused history. We have turned it into an emotional exercise instead of an intellectual and practical guide. We remember only the pain, not the purpose. We quote the freedom fighters, but forget their discipline, their sacrifice, their relentless focus. They were not perfect, but they were committed. They didn't have much, but they used everything they had to disrupt systems, awaken the masses, and reclaim dignity. Today, we have more education, more technology, more global access than our ancestors ever dreamed of. And yet, with all these advantages, we do less. We settle, we accept mediocrity, we consume but do not create, we watch but do not participate, we speak but do not move. It is not our lack of knowledge that is destroying us. It is our lack of will. If you know your history, then let that history push you forward. Let it fuel your resolve. Let it remind you that injustice is not new, and neither is the fight for justice. Let it show you that struggle is not something to fear, but something to embrace if we want to build something greater than ourselves. We must stop looking at the past only through the lens of pain. Look at it through the lens of purpose. Our ancestors fought with less, and they achieved more. Why? Because they understood that survival was not the goal, liberation was. They were not obsessed with comfort. They were obsessed with freedom. Not just political freedom, but mental freedom, economic freedom, spiritual freedom. They knew that true independence begins when the people rise, not when the flag is raised. The classroom is full of lessons from the past. The streets are full of lessons from the past. Even our failures are full of lessons. But none of these lessons matter if we keep repeating the same mistakes. We cannot inherit history and then insult it by living lives of passivity. We cannot worship our heroes and then betray their mission through our inaction. You say you love your country, then show it, not by waving a flag, but by building something, not by singing the anthem louder, but by serving with integrity, not by blaming others, but by becoming part of the solution. The generation before us fought to give us a voice. Now we must use that voice to create value. There is no hero coming to save us. We are the continuation of the story. What happens next is our responsibility, and history will judge us not by what we complained about, but by what we chose to build. Everywhere you go, you will hear the same thing: the youth are the future. It is repeated so often, it has become a slogan, a comfortable phrase we use to escape responsibility in the present. But I ask you today, if the youth are truly the future, then why are they being treated as passengers instead of drivers? Why are they waiting on the sidelines while the ship sails in the wrong direction? The truth is harsh but necessary. The youth are not just the future, they are the present, and the present demands action, not applause. On this continent, the average age is under 20. We are a young people, a vibrant, energetic, brilliant generation with dreams, skills, and potential that can shape the next 100 years of Africa. Yet, what are we doing with it? Many are scrolling, tweeting, complaining, comparing, entertaining themselves into numbness while the systems that shape our lives remain untouched. The streets are loud with noise but quiet in motion. We celebrate awareness, but we fear responsibility. This is a generation with more access to information than any in history. You can learn a new skill in your bedroom. You can connect with minds across the globe. You can start a business without owning a building. You can challenge power through a single video, and yet we still act as if we are powerless. We still behave like victims in a game we were born to change. Leadership is not a title reserved for presidents and politicians. Leadership is a mindset. Leadership is ownership. It is responsibility. It is the courage to stand for something, to build something, to influence others through your actions. You do not need a microphone to lead. You do not need a government position. You only need conviction and the discipline to turn that conviction into consistent, impactful action. We cannot afford to wait. Every day we delay, the problems grow deeper. Unemployment rises, corruption spreads, education fails, communities lose hope, and still the youth say, "We are waiting for our time." Let me be clear, your time is not coming, your time is already here. And if you do not use it, it will pass, and history will not be kind, because it will say that in the hour of decision the young were asleep, distracted by comfort, seduced by convenience, and defeated by fear. Stop saying the system is broken if you're not willing to fix it. Stop saying the country is falling if you're not willing to hold it up. You are not too young to start. You are not too small to influence. Look around you. Real change often begins from the margins, not the center. It begins with individuals who refuse to settle, who refuse to be statistics, who rise in their corners and do what they can with what they have. There is brilliance in our youth. You see it in art. You see it in music. You see it in tech. You see it in the resilience of street vendors, the innovation of informal businesses, the hunger in classrooms. But that brilliance must be directed. It must be sharpened. It must be used for more than just survival or entertainment. It must be used to build nations, create institutions, and transform narratives. Do not let anyone convince you that change will come from above. Change comes from within, from the young woman who decides to become a lawyer so she can defend the weak, from the young man who mentors children in his neighborhood after school, from the graduate who refuses to take a bribe, even when it's the easier path, from the farmer who teaches new techniques to his village, from the coder who builds an app that solves a local problem. That is leadership, that is power, that is youth in action. We must unlearn the idea that we are incomplete until someone gives us permission. Nobody gave our heroes permission to resist. Nobody handed them a perfect opportunity. They created the moment, they took the risk, they carried the burden of possibility, and so must we. This generation will either be known as the one that inherited problems and multiplied them, or the one that inherited pain and turned it into purpose. The youth must stop saying, "We are waiting for our turn. This is your turn, this is your test, and the world is watching not what you say, but what you do." We have complained, we have analyzed, and we have remembered our history. We have declared that the youth must lead, not linger. But after all the words are spoken, one truth remains. Nothing will change unless we act. Not tomorrow. Not when conditions are better. Not when the government changes or the economy improves. Now is the only time that matters, because action delayed is opportunity denied. The excuses we carry are often polished, intellectual, and emotional, but they are still excuses, and excuses are the enemies of progress. We cannot wait until we have everything we think we need to start. The one who waits for all the lights to turn green before leaving the house will never leave. We say we want to start businesses, but the capital is not enough. We want to serve our communities, but the structure is not right. We want to lead, but the system is too corrupt. My brothers and sisters, if the system is broken, then build your own. If the doors are closed, create new paths. If resources are scarce, use your creativity. What Africa needs now is not more complainers, but more creators. Not more critics, but more builders. We have seen examples across this continent. Young people starting tech companies from internet cafes, women running farms that feed entire villages, children teaching other children in informal classrooms, artists using their voice to mobilize change, and engineers solving local problems with local solutions. These are not fairy tales. These are real Africans using what they have, where they are, with passion and purpose. The difference between them and those who sit idle is not access, it is action. Start where you are. You may not have a position, but you have influence. You may not have money, but you have time. You may not have recognition, but you have ability. That is how movements begin, not with applause, not with popularity, but with a single step taken in faith. Every act of impact begins small, a seed, a spark, a moment of courage. It grows when it is watered with discipline and commitment. But if you never plant, nothing will grow. If you never move, nothing will shift. Some of us are waiting for perfect conditions before we dare to rise, but there will never be a perfect moment. There will always be a reason to delay. There will always be a fear to overcome, a risk to calculate. But if we keep waiting for clarity without commitment, we will end up growing old with regret, having lived long but done little. The most dangerous thing is not failure, it is comfort. Comfort seduces us into stillness. It convinces us that survival is enough, but Africa cannot survive any more. It must thrive, and thriving comes through bold, uncomfortable, and often thankless action. We must understand that excellence itself is a form of activism. To run a clean business in a dirty system is an act of rebellion. To teach well in a broken education system is resistance. To serve with honesty in a corrupt environment is a revolution. Every action rooted in integrity and love is a blow against the forces holding us back. Change is not always about protest in the streets. It is also about performance in the offices, commitment in the classrooms, and character in the homes. Do not underestimate what you can do with what you already have. We think impact needs funding, but many of the greatest changes in history were driven by people who had nothing but courage and conviction. We think leadership requires titles, but real leaders emerge through action. You do not have to do everything, but you must do something. You must rise from where you are and begin. Every wasted talent is a tragedy. Every ignored idea is a missed solution. Every silent voice is a lost chance for justice. You were not born just to observe. You were born to shape. You were not born to pass through time. You were born to leave a mark, and that mark will not come through intention alone. It will come through action. So I say to you, if you believe in a better Africa, stop waiting, start moving, start creating, start building, use your hands, use your mind, use your voice, but above all, use your will, because action is the true language of progress, and the time to speak it is now.